Thank you for listening to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Brummel, and thanks for joining us during the break. And this is why I'm kind of laughing. We were discussing twerking. I am totally out of the loop. I don't know, but let me contain myself. I'll intro everyone back in.
Well, the reason, just quickly, why we were talking about twerking and why I said some of the best stuff happens off the air is you were discussing how we have TV cameras in here now.
Yes.
We'll get into the show and describing about the TV show in a little bit. But you said, hey, if we run out of things to talk about, we can just dance. And I said, well, you can start twerking, and you almost spit your water all over the screen.
I've heard that word. I have no clue what it means.
And then our videographer, John, over here said, of all the people in the room, he goes, I know what it is, and he starts twerking.
And what's even worse is that world-renowned neuro and orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Alfred Bonatti, knew what it was. I hadn't a clue.
I think Dr. Bonatti's been on YouTube watching Miley Cyrus doing a little twerking.
I don't blame him. I really don't blame him for that.
I was twerking.
He's a twerking professional over here.
That's it.
Well, just to reset, we were talking about Tom Brokaw and how he was diagnosed with cancer earlier this week. Months ago, but he came out this week that he has cancer. And Jeff was relaying an interesting story, again, off the air about your own little cancer scare. I think a lot of people can relate to this, Jeff.
A few years ago, in my annual checkup, got a call back from my primary care physician who, first of all, I never get a call from my physician, who after I'd gone in for my annual checkup, his office had called and set up a follow-up appointment. So when I went in, I met with the doctor. It was late in the day, and we didn't meet in an examining room. We met in his office. And he explained that after going through a very in-depth annual physical, that he had noticed I had elevated white blood cell count.
Which is typically a sign of cancer, correct?
Correct. And it was slightly elevated.
Because it means that your body is trying to fight off something, because all of a sudden you've got way too many blood cells, and the blood cells is what gets rid of
And I hope I explained
infections.
this correctly, Dr. Bonatti, but the way they explained it to me was it was either an infection, flu, some type of an infection, or a sign of something going on that could be like cancer. So
Nobody wants to hear the C word.
no. And out of an abundance of caution, he referred me to an oncologist. So the very next day, after hearing something like that, of course, I called to make the appointment. And the thing that I don't think people realize is when that doctor tells you that you could have cancer, it is unbelievably devastating.
It's a punch to the gut, absolutely.
You know, I'm married. I've got 2 kids.
You're still young.
Yeah, I'm a fairly young guy, very, very healthy. So to say I was a little shook up would probably be an understatement. But the very next day, I called the oncologist, and the young lady that answered the phone, and at the time I was living in Orlando, the young lady that answered the phone answered at Cancer Center. And I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say, and I just hung up the phone.
Wow.
Now, being frank, when I heard her say Cancer Center is when it hit me. I was home.
Everything probably starts going through your head. I mean, what could it be? It's what's my life? How's that going to change? Is it going to end?
Frankly, I was shook up when I talked to him, when I came home and explained to my wife what had happened, and Teresa and I talked about it. Something I need to look into. But when I heard her utter those words, I hung up the phone, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I sat at my desk like a baby and cried.
Normally,
I was scared and it hit me all at once. So after 10 or 15 minutes, I kind of got my act together, went to the bathroom, wiped off my eyes, and called her back. And first thing I did is apologize for hanging up on her. And she was great. She said, "It's okay. I understand. You're not the first person who was a little shocked when they heard those words." But over the course of the next year, the Cancer Institute that I went to in Orlando did a series of blood tests. For the first 3 months, I had my blood taken every week. Then, actually, the first 3 weeks, it was taken every day. Then for 3 months, it was taken every week.
So you had to go get blood drawn every day.
Every day for the first 3 weeks.
Brutal.
Then for the next 3 months, it was weekly. Then for 3 months, it was monthly. And what they were doing was establishing a baseline. Well, out of all of that baseline, what was determined, by the grace of God, is that it just so happens that my body has slightly elevated white cells, something that I might need to keep an eye on in the future. but there was no diagnosis.
Wow.
But going through that process, and quite frankly, it's been 6 or 7 years sitting here telling you about it, kind of giving me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. But to go through that process and to hear that and to just think, how could it affect my ability to live, my ability to be a husband, to be a parent, to work? It was devastating. So we have talked to so many people with just unbelievable pain. I can imagine, like when we talked to Angie a little while ago, she felt like her life was over. She was devastated. And to have the ability to watch Dr. Bonatti and his team to be able to take people who, like Angie said, her life was over. She was pain management. We'll give you pills. Dr. Bonatti and his team gave her life back.
Absolutely. Fixed her.
And they gave her hope. That was the biggest thing. Jeff, like you, I went in for just a routine yearly physical, and all of a sudden I get a call at work, and I answer the phone, and it wasn't even a doctor. It was a nurse, and she said, "You have cancer."
What?
Yeah.
Just out of the blue.
I out of the blue, right? Wow. And so I remember just your throat tightening up and just like, huh? And then she hung up, and I just sat there, and I couldn't function. I went in and I told my boss, and he said, "Go take some time." And I remember crying and being scared, and I didn't want to upset my family, so I didn't say anything. And then they scheduled me to come in and go through a test, and I went through, and everything came back fine. And they said, "We apologize. The person shouldn't have said that. They should have said, could be precancerous," but it scared the daylights out of me. I was in my early 30s. I thought, my God, I'll never have a baby if I can ever, you just start contemplating life and all those things either you have or haven't achieved. And what if it is cancer? What's the outcome? And I remember being scared so completely. So I completely understand, Jeff. And like the people that have heard there's nothing that can happen for them, that they're going to have to live in pain. You hear it week after week on this show, that there is hope. And Dr. Bonatti and the Bonatti Spine Institute, along with highly skilled surgeons there, are able to help you.
Yeah, and if people want to get in touch with the Bonatti Spine Institute, how do they do so, Kimberly?
They can drive out to US 19 and Hudson Avenue. They can take a walk right in. They can give us a call at 855-267-0483 or visit the website at Bonatti.com. New and exciting. Tune in 7:30 p.m. Saturdays. Watch American Medicine Today on WFTS. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.